Welcome to Let's Chat with Derick. I am your host, Derick Phage, and I'm pleased to introduce my guest today. She is a parent consultant and behavior coach. She is also the founder of Success in Steps. I am joined by Sylvia Corzato. Sylvia, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. I think this is going to be a great conversation. There's a lot of people who out there who have, especially young families probably, and up to those tween and teen years, they're probably wondering how they can deal with a situation like this. So let's start with that for you personally. How have you and your family been dealing with the pandemic?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me. And, we've been taking it one day at a time. We haven't really changed much in how we deal with things. A lot of structures and keeping things consistent and just really being there for the kids because they're going through those emotions as well, a little roller coaster. So just kind of taking it in strides and dealing with one situation at a time.
How old are your kids?
13 and 11.
Oh, those interesting ages. So how have you had
Mm-hmm.
that discussion with your kids?
You mean just in general of how everything is going,
Yeah.
what's been happening? The kids are very intuitive. They like to ask a lot of questions. So as questions come up, I answer them as I see fit, on an as need to know basis. But they're able to handle a lot in terms of stats and information. They process that really well, so I take that into consideration because they ask the question because they want to know, and if I were to hold back on an answer, they call me out on it. So it kind of gauges for me what to share with them. But they're very much aware. We have family in Italy, so even before things took
Wow.
place here, we were really connecting with them over there, and they were educated on how things were shifting around in the world before it even impacted us. So I feel like they had a little bit of a baseline to go with on how things could
Yeah.
possibly change if it were to happen here.
Let's talk about your area of expertise. You're a parent consultant and behavior coach. So what exactly does that mean?
It means that I'm here to support parents. So I spent many, many years of my experience and time working with children one-on-one. And so what I do now is I've been in the field for 19 years.
Okay.
And now what I do is I focus more on supporting the parents, because my belief is that if we give parents the tools to put in their toolbox to deal with challenges and to really be able to connect with their children and understand the why behind the behaviors and also what's maintaining the behaviors, they're able to facilitate the change more effectively, because we're with our children most of the time when they're not at school.
Yeah, I imagine, just in your description, the benefits seem quite obvious, but tell me a little bit about the benefits and the feedback that you've gotten from families.
That's the feedback from families is always the most rewarding for me. Like, people always ask, like, why do you do things? And really for me, it's the aha moments that parents get, because when we're stuck in the rut of something, we go with what we know. And so we don't see all the different things that are happening around us. And so when I'm not there to point out to parents what they're doing wrong by
Right.
any means. What I'm trying to do is trying to provide a fresh view on the situation. I'm providing them with fresh eyes and one that's also not connected. It's much different to deal with something if you're connected to it, or if you're not. Like, I implement the same strategies as I would when I was a therapist with my own kids. But when you have that connection piece, when they're your own children, it's a lot different. But
Yeah.
by having that background and that experience, I'm able to implement the strategies confidently. But I can see how it could be difficult for some. So I'm here to support parents so that they have those aha moments, so they understand why things haven't worked for them in the past when they tried other things. When they get that realization of things that are missing or things that they've been doing too much of.
Okay.
When they just understand how having strategies and being consistent and having clear expectations and having boundaries, how those three things really help a child and a family to thrive, not only with your connection with your child, but with your partner. And so there's
Yeah.
just more calmness and a lot more balance. So I get a lot of that from families. They're like, we're really just enjoying our time with our kids now. And, bedtime struggles are no longer and I'm able to enjoy a glass of wine with my spouse. And
Yeah.
or bedtimes are no longer 5 hours, or meal times are actually enjoyable now, and we're having conversation. And I wasn't late to go to work this morning because my kids actually got dressed and did stuff, and it wasn't a yelling match, and I still felt great by the time I went to work and not exhausted. So hearing things like that,
Yeah.
to me, is worth it all.
You know what's interesting, Sylvia? I think there's been a lot of conversation around how this generation of parents, me being a parent myself as well, and probably even newer parents. There's a conversation around we've become our children's, or trying to become friends with our children rather than being parents first. Is that a discussion that you've heard? Is it something you talk to your clients about?
I have heard that discussion. I've been part of that discussion. I've observed it. And really, I think that we need to be parents first, because
Yeah.
our children thrive with consistency and boundaries rather than being their best friends. There's nothing wrong with being your child's best friend, like in the sense of having that great connection with your children. I love the relationship that I have with my kids. I wouldn't change it in a heartbeat. Like they're so much fun to travel with, to try new things with. They're awesome. But I'm their parent first.
Right.
And that I have rules, I have expectations, and I have boundaries. Do I bend on those things? Yes. But I always give an explanation as to why. Like, we're going to bed late tonight because, we don't have school in the morning, or,
Right.
there are
Special
exceptions to the
occasions
rule,
come up,
special
right?
occasions.
Yeah.
But I'm a strong believer of parent first, friend second, because they need
Right.
that.
So, Sylvia, how do you work with families? Is it just with the parents? Do you talk to the parents separately and as a couple? Do the kids get involved? Can you walk me through that process?
Absolutely. So I work with the parents virtually for first and foremost. I used to go into the families' homes and work with the parents, but from the feedback from the parents, they prefer the services to be virtually. I have a lot of families that log into their sessions from their respective workplace, wherever that may be, whether they work from home or work in an office. It's just convenient for them to flex their time so that they don't have the distraction of their children. And to answer your question, the children are not participating in these
Okay.
sessions. And the reason for that is because we're talking about all the not so great things that are happening at home in terms of their challenges. So we don't want their ears to be exposed to that. We want to be able for the parents to be like, full disclosure, what's going on? Let's really get into it, and to discuss strategies and how we can support them.
Yeah, that's understandable. There's no doubt. What about advice out there for parents? This is, as we discussed, off the top, this is, a new way of life that we're living at the moment. And,
Mhm.
we're self-isolating, and now we're together as families more than we ever have been. What are you hearing from your clients? Is there maybe a common theme to some of the issues that they're discussing with you?
So I have a different range of families that are reaching out to me. Some of the families that I've worked with in the past are seeing the benefits of how having those strategies put in place and having the structure, the consistency, and the boundaries, how it's helped them to develop a strong foundation to better manage situations. It's not that things are all perfect. We're all going through our own waves, right? Like
Right.
some days we have good days, sometimes we have bad days. The kids are, some days they're just a little bit more creative, or sometimes they're a little bit more needy. So I have families that are saying that it's helped them and it's helping them, but they're still, they could use some more support. And then I have other people that are just reaching out saying, I'm at a loss. There's a lot more, negative things that are happening, whether there's a lot more yelling from the children or from the parents to the children. We have a lot of emotional regulation that has to be put in place. Not everyone knows how to manage that very well. So
Right.
there are obstacles out there. However, saying that, being together right now is a great time because we are all together. We have nowhere to
Yeah,
go,
it's
right?
true.
We can't run away. We can't get into escape motivated behavior here and take off. It's a great time to, to evaluate what's working and what hasn't been working in the household, and start introducing things and how changing things. And if your children are old enough, I always encourage to get the kids involved. What do you guys like about dinner time? What do you guys like about when we go to bed? Like anything you want to change? Do you think bedtime's too early, too late? Like, at the age of my children are at 13 and 11, I can have those discussions.
Right.
Younger children, we have to implement those, but if now's a good time to start developing structure if some structure is not something that your family had in the past, or it's a great time to introduce chores and get the kids more involved, or it's a great time to kind of back off and let your children do more of their own things. And so that, during the day when you're doing those 9 to 5 jobs and we're constantly rushed to go on the go, we're doing so much stuff for them just because we are on a schedule. We need to be on time before that traffic log happens, and we need to get to work on time. Now's the time to see what they can do for making their own breakfast in the morning, or getting dressed on their own, or self-care, brushing their teeth on their own with supervision. Kind of loosen the reins just a little bit and kind of see, now that we have time, what are they capable of doing, and handing that off to them.
Yeah, you mentioned structure, and the schedule has changed so much that obviously that structure has changed completely. I mean, what do you do? Like, is bedtime still the same except for this, sort of the movie nights and things like that? Do you try to keep some kind of schedule and structure still?
I strongly believe that structure is what's going to help keep things kind of normal. Right. So yes, for us, we've been allowing the kids to stay up a little bit later, but then they're still capable of waking up at a reasonable time. They're not one to really sleep in the morning, and they're both, I'm very thankful, they both go right to their schoolwork, because I'm really happy with the way that both of their schools have been delivering homework to them. And they know that, like, our structure, for example, in our day is that they do their schoolwork first, and then they get to do their other activities. But there's a balance. It's not a free fall of how much electronic time they get to have. There's time whereby they get to go outside. Also, I'm very fortunate that they've been upkeeping with their virtual soccer sessions and virtual jiu-jitsu sessions as well.
Oh, that's cool.
So
that's great.
It's keeping them active. My daughter's been going out for her runs. So they're keeping active. So there's a balance. But I do say that structure is important right now, because it's when we don't have structure that the kids are not going to know what to do with themselves. And they're going to constantly be asking you, like, what can I do next? Or I'm hungry, when they just ate. They're trying to fill those voids, right? We need a sign in front of that fidget. And I'm sure you've seen it. You're not hungry, you're just bored. That's been floating around on social media, and I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, and I think just what you just described, I think a lot of parents can relate to it right away. Now, you mentioned most of your clients prefer virtually. So so many businesses I've been talking to so far of saying, what a great impact it's had on their business. For yourself, has there been any impact whatsoever?
In terms of more people reaching out, or?
Yeah, maybe on both sides. Maybe more people are reaching out, or, maybe it's the opposite. Maybe, you're not getting as much business. What have you seen?
I've actually seen a decline in business. I think that families have a lot on their plate right now. And it's hard to reach out and have a session when you have children at home as well. Like, how do you keep them occupied, particularly depending on what age they're at. So yeah, for me, it's been a little bit of ups and downs for business, and just the access as well for some families as well is not as easy as it could be with if things weren't the way they are right now.
Understandable. Sylvia, for those people watching, how can they get in touch with you? What's the best way?
They can reach out to me on my website at successinsteps.ca. I also have a Facebook page, and I'm on Instagram as well. But my website is the best. I have an intake form whereby they can complete, and I have specific questions that I ask for families, and they also will get a sense by answering those questions if it's a good fit as well for services. And also, just to add that I do have different service options available for families as well.
Yeah, what are they?
So for families that just want to pick my brain, they have like one specific thing. It's not an ongoing thing, or maybe it is, but it's, they don't want intensive support. I have a session that's called Pick My Brain, and it's a 1-hour consultation that happens via Zoom.
Okay.
But for families that have been dealing with the situation for a long time, it's a challenge that keeps on reoccurring, or it's an obstacle that they've been having, or parents are not able to get onto the same page on a situation. So different parenting styles, or a lot of defiance behavior or challenges or whatever that may be. A focused parenting package is more suitable for those families because it provides a more intensive approach. It is a month-long program whereby we meet for sessions once a week, but then
Okay.
every family gets a personalized family log whereby they're tracking their episodes of what's happening at home. And I go in and do a behavioral analysis of that to identify to them the why behind the behavior, that function, and also what's maintaining it. And then what's great is that when we're in sessions, I mean, I've been in the field for 19 years. I have my own children. I can pick examples of so many different scenarios,
Yeah.
right? But what I do is I pull from the actual family's situations so that it really resonates with them, it relates to them. And then when that behavior reoccurs, which chances are it's going to, now they have actual strategies that are tailored to them, to their strengths and needs, to what their family values and objectives are. And so it gets them on track. And so we can start implementing and make a tailored approach for them.
Amazing. Sylvia, thank you so much for joining me today. Really do appreciate it. And I wish you and your family well.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
All right.
And you
Take
as
care.
well.
Thank you.
Bye.
Hey, if anyone wants to comment, by the way, please share your comments below, and maybe you have some strategies that have been working well with your family and your children. So let us know what you think. Thanks very much for watching. You've been watching Let's Chat with Derick.